The legacy of Christopher Columbus, the man who initiated, sustained European contact with the Americas, remains one of the most fiercely debated and complex figures in world history, demanding a nuanced examination far beyond simplistic notions of him as either a heroic explorer or a ruthless villain. For centuries, Columbus was lauded as a courageous adventurer who discovered a new world, a narrative central to the formation of national identities and colonial projects in Europe and the Americas. However, this celebratory view has undergone a dramatic shift in recent decades, fueled by the rise of critical historical analysis, indigenous activism, and a deeper understanding of the devastating consequences of European colonialism. This re-evaluation exposes a far more problematic figure, one whose voyages facilitated the enslavement, exploitation, and decimation of indigenous populations, sparking a profound and enduring legacy of injustice. To understand this paradox, we must delve into the historical context of Columbus's life and voyages, meticulously scrutinizing his motivations, actions, and the long-term impact of his actions on both Europe and the Americas. Born in Genoa, Italy, around 1451, Cristoforo Colombo, as he was initially known, received a modest education and developed an early fascination with geography and navigation. He absorbed knowledge from ancient texts, particularly those of Ptolemy, which mistakenly believed Asia extended much further west than it actually did, influencing his conviction that a westward voyage could reach the East Indies. Columbus's ambition was not solely driven by intellectual curiosity. He sought wealth, titles, and royal patronage, tirelessly pitching his westward voyage proposal to various European monarchs, including the Portuguese and Castilian crowns. Rejected by Portugal, who favored exploring the African coast, Columbus eventually secured the support of Queen Isabella I and King Ferdinand II of Spain, who were eager to expand their empire and find a new trade route to the lucrative spice trade of the East. The Capitulaciones de Santa Fe, the agreement signed between Columbus and the Spanish monarchs, outlined the terms of his expedition, promising him titles, wealth, and a share of the profits in exchange for leading the voyage and claiming newly discovered lands for Spain. On August 3, 1492, Columbus set sail from Palos de la Frontera, Spain, with 3 ships, the Niña, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, unaware of the vast continent that lay ahead. After weeks at sea, the crew grew restless and fearful, convinced they were sailing towards the edge of the world. But Columbus, skillfully employing psychological manipulation, maintained his optimism and prevented a mutiny. On October 12, 1492, land was sighted, an island in the Bahamas, which Columbus christened San Salvador. Believing he had reached the Indies and encountering the Lucayan people, the indigenous inhabitants. Rather than recognizing the existence of a separate continent, Columbus persisted in his belief that he had reached the East Indies, referring to the indigenous people as Indians, a misnomer that continues to persist today. During his first voyage, Columbus engaged in trade with the Lucayan people, exchanging trinkets and manufactured goods for gold, parrots and other items, establishing a rudimentary system of colonial exploitation. He also initiated the practice of taking indigenous people back to Spain as slaves or servants, a precursor to the widespread enslavement and forced labor that would characterize the subsequent colonial period. Columbus made 3 subsequent voyages to the Americas, exploring more of the Caribbean islands, including Cuba, Hispaniola, present-day Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and Jamaica, and establishing Spanish colonies. On his second voyage, he brought settlers, livestock, and agricultural implements, laying the foundation for a permanent Spanish presence in the Americas and initiating a radical transformation of the indigenous landscape. The introduction of European diseases, such as smallpox, measles, and influenza, to which the indigenous populations had no immunity, resulted in devastating epidemics that decimated communities and drastically reduced their numbers. The Spanish colonists also engaged in brutal acts of violence, including massacres, enslavement, and forced conversion to Christianity, further contributing to the decimation of the indigenous population and the destruction of their cultures. Columbus's administration of the Spanish colonies was marked by corruption, mismanagement, and cruelty, leading to widespread discontent among the settlers and repeated reports of abuse by the Spanish crown. He was eventually removed from his position as governor of Hispaniola in 1500, accused of tyranny and mismanagement, and returned to Spain in disgrace. Columbus died in Valladolid, Spain in 1506, still convinced that he had reached the East Indies. Unaware of the vast continent, he had inadvertently opened up to European colonization. The immediate impact of Columbus's voyages on Europe was transformative, sparking an unprecedented wave of exploration and colonization that would fundamentally reshape the global economy, politics, and culture. The influx of gold, silver, and other resources from the Americas fueled European economic growth and facilitated the rise of capitalism, while the demand for labor led to the transatlantic slave trade, which forcibly transported millions of Africans to the Americas. The Columbian Exchange, the transfer of plants, animals, and diseases between the Old World and the New World, had profound consequences for both regions, leading to new agricultural practices, dietary changes, and demographic shifts. However, the long-term consequences of Columbus' voyages for the indigenous populations of the Americas were overwhelmingly negative, resulting in widespread death, displacement, cultural destruction, and enduring social and economic inequality. The historical narrative surrounding Columbus has undergone a significant re-evaluation in recent decades, fueled by indigenous activism, critical scholarship, and a growing awareness of the complexities of colonialism. The traditional portrayal of Columbus as a heroic explorer has been challenged by historians who have documented the brutality of his actions and the devastating impact of his voyages on indigenous populations. Indigenous communities have increasingly demanded recognition of the injustices perpetrated against them and have called for the removal of Columbus statues and the renaming of places named in his honor. The debate over Columbus' legacy is not simply a matter of historical revisionism, but also a reflection of ongoing struggles for social justice, decolonization, and indigenous rights. While acknowledging the significance of Columbus' voyages in opening up the Americas to European contact, it is crucial to critically examine his actions and the devastating consequences they had on indigenous populations. Moving beyond simplistic narratives of heroism or villainy, a nuanced understanding of Columbus's legacy requires a recognition of the complexities of historical context, the perspectives of multiple stakeholders, and the enduring impact of colonialism. Ultimately, the story of Christopher Columbus is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition, the destructive potential of colonialism, and the importance of confronting uncomfortable truths about the past.